Well, sometimes you just have to go full fop mode. Game changer, earwigs. Man, I wish they hadn't named it that. Sorry, I can't hear that and not think of the insect in earwig. Like, I'm not a huge fan of bugs in general. Earwigs are one of those insects that really kind of freaks me out. But anyways, let's talk about this one. Short version, it's fun. It's mostly pretty well constructed. The way it layers complications as it goes. Sort of the initial setup of just kind of the fun gimmick that there's information coming over the earpieces that is separate from what Sam is saying out loud, and we have our initial premise of somebody was an imposter, was getting no actual instructions, but was faking it and trying to blend in. And I love that right off the bat, the person who initially had to be the imposter, Oscar, did such a great job of blending in that nobody guessed that he was the imposter. I was quite impressed. By the end of the thing, I did kind of feel bad for Izzy because I think just Izzy's personality just lent to people being hyper suspicious of her, whether it was her or not. And she ended up being imposter type things relatively often. I didn't do a count, but it felt like it happened to her more than more than others. But like when I say I feel bad for her, like in a funny way. This was a good group of people. They all really got into the spirit of the thing right off the bat. Because I actually watched it twice, I would have liked if they'd actually drawn attention to the fact that the butterflies being stuck in the hair was to keep track of the points. They didn't say anything about that, and I didn't pick up on it until the second watching. I noticed that there were butterflies in the wigs, but I was like, wait, were those there before? And there's like one quick shot of somebody putting butterflies in, but they don't draw attention to it. So it wasn't until the second viewing that I realized what that was. This is actually coincidental. I didn't wear this on purpose. I got this at a queer arts festival in Barrie, Vermont yesterday. So I'm just showing it off. But anyways, and then that as an initial thing is kind of fun. It's not super surprising in this space because it's the same set where they did the Secret Sober whole thing. But then they add the additional layer of people playing the Secret Second game. And the rules of the Secret Second game change every time, which is great. I love that it is the variety of sometimes the people playing the Secret Second game know who each other are. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they have to figure out who the other one is. And I really enjoyed Ross slipping in movies with Sandra Bullock starred in. And I feel like I should have picked that out because it really jumped out to me when Izzy was like, oh, we got cars, we got car boats, we got Lake House. And my brain immediately went, oh, Lake House on DVD, you've got that. And then later it turns out like, oh, yeah, actually, yes, that. And I agree with Izzy. The way Ross got Bird Box in there was deviously clever. So I like the way it builds. I like the way that the players they never like fully are antagonistic towards each other, but the way that sometimes they'll kind of gang up on one and different ones seem to have different techniques for trying to not get spotted. And the change in games each round also did a pretty good job of keeping it lively. I like the scoring system as well. That also kept it, things moving as it went, and it didn't like leave people in the dust completely right off the bat. It was kind of similar to Dirty Laundry's scoring system, oddly enough. But that all went pretty well. It's not a phenomenal episode for reasons that I'm going to say are only partly its own fault. I'll explain that. What it's lacking is a climactic moment. This is something that Game Changer can't always control. It depends on the nature of the game. Like, there are some games that have a very carefully constructed moment, constructed by Sam and the team to create a climactic moment. Something like Sam Says 3. The climactic moment is, well, initially you think it's going to be the party bus, and then it turns out to be the return from the party bus and all the points that they lost and leaving the players broken. That was a climax that was pretty well within their control. I'd also consider Count the Rice to be to build towards a climactic moment that was pretty well within their control. I mean, not completely. And I mentioned when I talked about that episode, the editing on that must have been, it was both a triumph and I'm sure it was a nightmare to work on. But they did construct it that it would lend itself to a very natural climactic moment, which would be the joy of victory for whoever managed to do it. And they kind of got a double climax out of that, because you had Demi having victory just stolen away from him at the last minute. And so they kind of built and constructed the game to have a climactic moment. But then there's stuff like this and, say, Kangaroo Court, which just sort of end. And that's not inherently like a horrible thing, but I do feel like the games that build to a climax tend to just land better and stick more in the memory and be more celebrated. I mean, I think a good example of a game that its structure did not necessarily lend towards an impactful climax, but they got really lucky and had one anyway, or actually I'll name two because I'm just on a tangent at this point. Second Place. Like, it was already fun watching Brennan be tormented by the concept of not trying to do your best. They couldn't have scripted him winning the one game he did not want to win. And so him winning at the end was a perfect climax that they couldn't have scripted. I mean, technically it was a 1 in 3 chance, but given that he was trying to deliberately fail as hard as possible, it was beautiful. And just this season with Noisome Makes, there is a climax created by the final round with the most complications and the most ways in which it should be impossible to get this original prompt. They nail it and get the full 5 points. And like, you could argue it's slightly anticlimactic because there's like one more go after that, but you're still riding the high of that perfect 5-point score that it doesn't matter. And again, that was something that wasn't necessarily an expected result based off the design of the game. So they didn't construct a climax, but they still ended up with one. This episode is begging for a climax it doesn't have. And I said it's partially the episode's fault because I think they tried to construct one, but the way they didn't get them the result they wanted. Now, I am kind of guessing a little bit about some of the motivations behind what they were doing, but we have the final reveal of the super secret metagamer who had been playing their own, secret game the entire time. And I'm sure what the hope was for that to end up being a similar reveal to at the end of the Secret Sober, because if it landed right, it becomes a reveal that recontextualizes the whole game, or at least one player's actions throughout the whole game. So I think, in theory, the idea of the super metagamer was a solid idea to give it a final button that gives it something that just turns the entire episode on its head. I think the problem is what the prompt was for the super metagamer. Because the prompt was, throughout the game, try and get as many people to vote for Sam as possible. And because she ended up doing something that was, as a player, the most strategic way to play that, it ultimately ends up being the least interesting as a viewer. Here's what I mean by that. As a player, strategically, she did the smartest thing, which was to not really try and get anybody to vote for Sam until the very end, and then go as hard as possible on it, and successfully got everybody to vote for Sam. And strategically, the reason why that was the better idea was because if she was trying to sprinkle the idea of oh, maybe we should vote for Sam, maybe we should vote for Sam across the game, people would have caught on. Heck, I caught on it's really weird that you're really pushing for everybody to not just say Sam's doing something, but everyone should vote for Sam. I sniffed out on that, but she got away with it because she only did it the once. If she'd been trying to do it throughout the whole game, strategically, that's just a bad move. But for the reveal to have the impact on the audience and the game as a whole that I think they wanted it to have, she needed to have been doing this across the game so that it recontextualizes a lot more of the episode. Instead, it only ends up giving context to one of the last things that happened. So it is a final reveal that wants to be bigger than it is, but it can't be because the reveal doesn't really reach far enough back in terms of its impact on the game overall, as it really needed to be to feel like a proper climactic reveal. And I think, again, that was because of the prompt, because the prompt they gave, she played strategically the best way she could have done it. But it didn't make for as good television doing it that way. Now, I don't necessarily have a suggestion on what a better prompt would be. I'm not, I'm not claiming I could have done it better, but I am just left thinking, like, the nature of the prompt you gave, this was a predictable outcome that I think is not quite the outcome they wanted in terms of the impact it had overall. So all of that to say this is a good, fun episode with really fun energy that doesn't really have a climax, so it just sort of ends. Cool. I took a while to ultimately just kind of say that, but there you go. Game Changer, Earwigs. God, I hate saying it. What'd you think about this one? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills, enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. They all help. Don't worry too much about it, though. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so you can come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lupfula, Daphne Matthews, Kay Johnston, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Snark Shark, Oliver B, Mystic Shadow, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Magdalena, Melissa Pedersen, Becky Sparks, Twilord, Tracy Scrabbit, Palba Rabajoggle, Sir Didymus is my favorite, and additionally from the lower tiers of support, I'd also like to thank Isabel Lovelace, Hey Chica, and Lee Campo. What are you guys doing? Oh my goodness, who's back there? Oh, Worm, why do you do this?